Good afternoon and welcome to M.M.E. I'm your host, Blind Prime, and for today we're going to be talking about the G.I. Joe Classified Series Haslab Dragonfly, and we're going to be talking about what's more than meets the eye. Here on my channel, we don't discuss paint and we don't discuss color. We don't discuss Art Deco and stuff like that. No, those are all things that you can get from a photograph. Those are things you can get from an image. What I like to talk about here are the things that you can only get when you hold it in your hand. So I talk about how it feels in the hand, if it's good for the fingertips. I like to talk about those things. So today on my channel, like always, we're going to try my best to describe every square inch of this thing, and also try my best to talk about the different types of plastic used that I can feel, and how it feels in the hand, and whether or not it's a good uh, action figure. And of course, I speak about all of this from a blind person's perspective. And good luck finding another blind person on YouTube who owns a dragonfly. I think I may be the only one. And I am very happy that you are here to watch this with me. I hope you enjoyed my box opening video as I learned what a dragonfly was, because all I had to go by was it's the it's the father of the Apache. And I'm like, okay, well, what does that mean exactly? So I looked it up. The father of the Apache is the AH-1 um, Uruguay, also known as the Cobra. And it has another a model number. I did not memorize that model number. And let me look at my notes here. Wait, I don't have any notes because I can't read the notes. So no, we're not, nothing like that. No, the Cobra was named the Cobra because there was something going on with the Native American tribes at the time, and so they decided not. It may have gotten political. I wasn't exactly clear on the subject, but they decided to go with the name Cobra instead of the name Uruguay, which it originally was going to be named. It is a variation of the Huey. Apparently, something like 70% of this helicopter are Huey parts. So I thought that was kind of neat. The Huey organization, they built it to both save costs and make something that they were really good at. And they were good at making Hueys, so they figured if we make it like a Huey, then our engineers don't have to go very far to figure out what to do next. At least that's my assumption. So if you want to help me raise awareness for the blind and the visually impaired through alternative means and methods, and this is including to, but not limited to, talking about the G.I. Joe Classified Series Haslab Dragonfly, then please go below and hit the like button, share, and subscribe. And if you want to chat with me, leave a comment. Ask me anything. You got a question? Ask it. I'll answer it, or do my best to answer it to the best of my abilities. I'm not perfect, so I may get something wrong, but I'll still interact with you. So interact with my channel, and I'll interact back. All right, let's get into the actual description. So first off, we're talking about the nose here. Let's see, can we rotate you with? Actually, we'll have to move clutch. I currently, so we'll talk about clutch first. But right now, I have clutch, and clutch is working on refilling the ammunition for the machine guns. That's well, at least the machine gun on the left hand side. On the Would that be the right hand side? That would be the right hand side. On the right hand side of the helicopter, and it is my understanding that that also feeds into the minigun at the very front. Both sides do. So I have him here, and we can remove him. He is standing on a GI Joe peg. The best way I found to actually pose a GI Joe in this on the front, repairing this area, or at least like clearing out a jam or something in the inner workings of the front guns, is put his foot on top of the landing skid that has the little pole connector bit, the little tab, and then you put his other foot on the ground next to him, so that he's just stationary like that. I tried putting his other foot on the other part of the skid, and it just wasn't working. The sizes were wrong, but I was thinking about it, and I'm like, okay, who do I have in the GI Joe line that is a mechanic? Like I always bring up a guy I'm forgetting the name of, Scrap Metal, to talk about Cobra stuff, because Scrap Metal's a designer and stuff for the Cobra. We don't really have we haven't really gotten any designers or builders like that for the GI Joe line as of yet, so far as I know. So Clutch here was the closest to an engineer that the GI Joe classified line has given us on the Joe side. So far, the Cobras have given us multiple engineers. You know, the Mole Rats, the Televipers, the Techno Vipers. They've given us engineers. So it's just one of those funny things. Now we'll set Clutch down over here, and he's going to come back later for size comparisons because I like using Clutch because of the fact I just explained. I mean, he's a mechanic, and it's important to recognize them. Mechanics do not get recognized enough in warfare, and mechanics are the ones that make sure all these cool vehicles continue moving on. So to all the mechanics out there, the military mechanics, I give you 2 thumbs up, mates. Keeping them good. You know, keep those machines running properly. That is very important. A tank can't go anywhere without the oil, and the mechanic's the one who knows how to fill up that oil. So let's get into this. Let's close up that panel. Now to describe to you how to open this panel. What was that just fell off? Oh. You know, I should probably take off this Sidewinder missile on this side because it's getting in the way. Okay, so reaching around there. All right, there we go. It's a little awkward getting around this thing. So to describe this panel here, you'll find a foot pad because the idea behind it is the pilot or the gunner gets up on the skid, and then they put 1 foot on this pad, and then they can actually squeeze in. Now, it's a little far away for this corner here, but the idea is they get on the pad and then climb into the pilot seat in the back. The pad's on the other side in the same position, but it's for the front gunner seat. So go ahead and close that down. And next to that, towards the front of the vehicle, if you run your thumbnail right over that pad where the foot's supposed to rest, you'll find there's a cut, a little semicircular cut in the plastic. And if you get your thumbnail in there just right, you can pull down the door and feel all this amazing texture. And yes, there is some really cool textures in there. For instance, the rear of the little insect gun is actually inside this panel. And in back here, you can feel where there's reams of ammunition that have been loaded. At least that's what I assume those textures are just rounds upon rounds upon rounds of ammunition that's been loaded in little barrels into that compartment, because that is an ammunition compartment for the front guns. Now, speaking of the front guns, we'll get to that, but first off, let's get to talking about this thing's size, because I know a lot of people have been wondering about size-wise, and I figured, why not bring out my handy-dandy Lego pad, and we can talk about it together. So I got my Lego pad out, and let's bring the Lego pad to the front of the vehicle and talk about the top of this vehicle is basically the same except around the rotor region. So we'll discuss the rotor region separately than the other parts when it comes to height. Now there we go. I'm going to say it's there. So we're going to go, that's 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. 22 studs tall at the top of it. Definitely not as tall as the HISS tank. And we will have a separate video where I will be talking about those things. This is 33 inches long, but we're going to just measure the front half because no one's really talked about that. They always include the tail in the measurements. So we're going to measure it from Huey nose to the front of the weapon wings. And we get 32 studs. It's an entire length. Actually, no, it's more than that. I give it 34, 35, 34.5 studs long from the front of the wings that have the armaments to the front of the nose. Now, from the end of the wings to the tail, where the tail begins, is right there, I think. Yeah. That's where the tail begins, but we'll consider it the end of the engines, okay? So we'll measure from this location to the end of the engines, and we've got it right there. I should have measured it differently. Let's spin that around. Try one more time. All right, so measure it from there and there. Drag down. We get that one. Okay. Now this is going to make it easier. So we can count 1, 2, 3, 4, 4. So we subtract 4 from 32. That gives us 28, and it's 28 studs long from the wing, the front of the wing that holds the weapons, to where the tail actually starts. And we add that 28 to the 34. And 4 and 8 is 12. And we make that 32. And 32 and 30 together is 62. So 62 studs long from nose tip to the beginning of the tail. The tail is its own story. I'm going to drag this forward a bit so the tail comes out more. And here we go. All right, so tail measurement now. We got this. Tail is 32. A little bit longer than 32. Actually, a little bit lot longer than 32. Let's go ahead and measure that up there. All right, bring this down here and set you up. Line it up. There it goes. And there you are, sir, right there. 10. No, longer than 10. All right, so that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. All right, that's the 10. So 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. So 16 studs is the length of the tail unit. This guy's pretty big. Now the tail is at the same height the as the canopy, but this area where the engines are is a different height altogether. And I'm going to measure from the top of the rotor. And the top of the rotor, I give that 34 studs height because it can just barely go over the top. Actually, it's about a stud difference between the bottom of the rotor and the top of the 32 faceplate. So 34 studs tall, pretty big guy. And width-wise, that's the funny part. Okay, so that's where we get into a very small number in comparison. We've been dealing with some pretty decent numbers. We're going to compare it at its widest. And let's spin this around so it's easier for me to measure. And there. Right there. Yeah. This thing is about as wide as a leader class transformer in their vehicle mode because it's almost 10 studs wide. Not a very wide guy. Now, if you count the wings with the armaments, we get a different story. The wings with the armaments make this thing 32 plus extra wide. Yeah, I'd give it 30, 38 maybe, if you include the sidewinders. If you take the sidewinders off, it's 32. But if you add the sidewinders on, you're going to add on an additional 3 or 4 on each side, giving them an additional 8, meaning that 32 will become a 40. Yeah, we're just going to round up, and I like rounding down. Okay, so that's the basic measurements for this thing. I think it is decently large, though in reality, this would be 33 feet long, and in reality, it's a full like 12 feet shorter than the actual AH-1 Cobra. This is a smaller version of the Cobra, just slightly. So keep that in mind whenever you're looking at a comparison of them. I do have the blades over here. Here's the nice blades, and we can add those real quick. And I'll talk about the blades and get into more discussions. And Kream is sleeping on the blades. Get off that blade. That's why one side of them are worn. They're going to smell like cat farts. Thanks, Kream. All right, so if I spin the blade, I can pop myself in the chin. If I like lean back, I can, let's see. All right, can I do it fun? Let's do it. Wow, ow! Okay, let's try it again. Okay, and yay! I did it. I did it without bashing something, and I can stop it. The blades are really, really long. To get an idea, actually, I forgot. We need to measure the blades. So let me pull off one of these blades. I appreciate that you can do this. You can pull the blades off for storage. So, like, I didn't want these blades constantly whacking into me while I'm talking to you, so I took them off. And the blades are a lot longer than 32 studs. They are 32 studs plus, let's get that straightened out there, okay, and then back down, line up, and we get right, we're going to have to lay you up just a bit, okay, there we are, and that is 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, nearly 20 studs long is each of these blades. And then, let's see, we're going to have to take away those studs because that's the connector. So we'll do that real quick. Boom, we're taking away those studs. We got 10 studs. No, actually, that connector's big. That connector is 12 studs long. So we take away the connector, and then I'm going to connect it there. And from each side of you, you are there is that's so that's the 16, 17, 18, 18 studs. So it's 18 studs from connector to connector, and then this guy is pretty long, 32 plus an additional 8 equals 40, so 40 and 40, and then add that together with the 18, and we've got an insane 98 studs in length from helicopter to helicopter. So let's go ahead and remove those guys, slide them down over here. We can of course use the blades to whack our cat and make Chop Kitty. All right, let's set these off to the side, and we're going to then move on to talking about describing this guy from nose tip to tail tip. And nose tip here, this is where we get a lot of the Huey action going on. We can tell that this was born from a Huey because it's got the front of a Huey. It's like somebody took a Huey helicopter and smooshed it, and he squished it down between their hands and made it thinner. It reminds me of that commercial for the Game Boy Pocket. If you're old enough to remember the commercial from the Game Boy Pocket, it had an original Game Boy in the commercial, and then these machines compressed it down into a Game Boy Pocket. And that's the feeling I get from the front of this, is it was a Huey that was compressed by some machines to be the shape of a Cobra, the AH-1 Cobra. Now, by the way, the Cobra is still in use today. It's now on its Z model. Just to let you know. So it's now the AH-1Z. It is pretty neat. Okay, so the nose of the cone is very smooth. We've got some wonderful rivets here. And by the way, I love the rivets, but apparently the Cobra has inset rivets. That's what I was able to learn about it. The rivets are smooth, but I do appreciate that they added these extra textures for us, and I do love it. You know, one of the reasons why I am a lover of the G.I. Joe Classified line is that they do not skimp on the textures, mostly. And I bring that up right now because I want to point out a part where they skimped on some texture. And I do have to say, I caught you, engineering team. You didn't think somebody would notice. But the blind guy noticed because the blind guy loves touching things. So we're going to lean it back. We'll talk about the chain gun. Now, at the top of the chain gun here, we can actually bend the chain gun down to get a better look. So coming from where it connects to the helicopter, we've got one big strap, and then a long amount of gun barrel, and then another big strap, and then the end of the 3 barrels. And when it comes to texture wise, there's no texture on the straps, and there's not really much texture on the barrels. I understand that. And at the same time, I was hoping we'd get like a new use for the barrel, for the gun that came with the ram cycle. I was kind of hoping that gun could be here, or this panel here, this chain gun could actually be removable, so that we could just add whatever guns we want to the nose. Very similar like how his tank has a removable nose gun. I do wish that this had a removable nose gun. I think it'd be nice, but oh well. Anyway, the thing I noticed is whenever I felt on the underside, so we get the end of the barrels, and they have 3 barrels. You can count 1 barrel at the top, and then this barrel, and you can run your thumbnail between the barrels, all 3 of them. Then you get to this middle section, and the 2 bottom barrels have been molded together to create 1 wide barrel. And I just wanted to mention, I caught that. I noticed this bit of laziness. And I did definitely notice that you added waffling to the skids. Come on, Hasbro. We paid a lot of money for these things. We shouldn't have gotten waffling in our skids, and we should have got textures on our barrels, okay? It just seems reasonable to me. Now, we're moving on from the barrel. The barrel can move right and left 180 degrees, so it can shoot right and left at the same position and move 180 degrees between them. it can also move down at 45 degrees. So it can shoot right and left and just obliterate anything on the ground, civilian wise. It also has these two guns on either side of it, and we talked earlier about the port on the on one side, and there's an example of the port directly on the other. And this thing's got rivets galore. But I do also want to point out another mistexture. The inside of this door doesn't have any texture on it, and I would like to have seen some sort of grippy texture, something that an individual could stand on, or something like that, or at least lean on. I was expecting a texture there. Instead, we've got a couple of little bits that showcase it being taken out of the injection molding area. I have to say, I caught you again there. All right, so we're moving on, and the rivets on the sides are at high Kream. Hey, Kream, the helicopter's coming for you. Do you like the helicopter? It's coming for you, Kream. It's coming for you. Okay. So moving on to the this canopy. The canopy area is really nice. It feels amazing. It reminds me a lot of the G.I. Joe classified canopy for the HISS tank. I think it'd been neat to get two different types of canopy like we did with the HISS tank. But I appreciate that they went with something that feels more akin to G.I. Joe classified than like the retro stuff. So though we had the option to make it a retro HISS tank, I like the fact that this is a G.I. Joe classified canopy. And I can tell it's a classified canopy because of all the rivets and stuff. Stuff that the retro canopy on the HISS tank was missing. It's got them things. And that is cool. And it's also got the opening area. So you can actually open the side here somehow. Alright. Come on. Put your thumbnail in there. I do wish that they had managed to get us a better grippy spot on this little tab so we can pull up the side of the canopy. And I kind of wish that had been happening. So one side opens for the pilot, and then the opposite side, but lower, opens for the gunner. So you can have both sides open. Spin it around to showcase the other side. Nah, trying to slap myself in the face with the tail. Oh! Alright, now moving back around. Okay, that's the canopies and how they open. They don't have really much texture other than the beams that all the glass connects to. And all those have some really nice texture. It's very smooth. It's very elegant. I really like it. I love these rivets. They just make me so happy. Now, going further down from the Sentry guns and the little tab that we talked about earlier with the cool interior of ammunition stuff, we come down into the skids. The skids are decent. There's not many textures on the skids. We do have occasional textures of bracing things, things that are wrapped around the skids to help brace them. And it has a place for a person to stand at the front of the skid so they can get into the panel there on the side below the cockpit. And then back here, there's another place on the skid right behind the first. When the skid is connected to the helicopter, it uses these two arches. The arch thing that connects the skid to the helicopter that's closest to the pilots has the second connection point for the G.I. Joe classified figure's feet. And that connection point allows the G.I. Joe classified character to get up onto the wing here. And if I remember what I did with Clutch, I'll be able to showcase this. I use Clutch. Okay, so Clutch here can come from the road, from the landing gear there, and then he just kind of climbs up here onto the wing. And I do say there's a missed opportunity of not putting like something to hold the figure together on the wing. Instead, there's just kind of nothing. But over here on the engine, at the top, we have another one of those finger pull bits. And this opens up the engine interior for the top of the helicopter. Though I have to say I'm a little annoyed by its placement because, it's too high up for Clutch to really get at. And it's too low down for Clutch to get at if he's standing on the wing. It's one of those. How is the individual? How's the repair guy, the maintenance guy, supposed to get into this engine? It made more sense with the HISS tank because we had that fun little fold down ladder, but there's no sort of connection points other than using the second arch that connects the skids to the helicopter, and then having the figure kind of stand on that. But there's nothing that keeps him there, so he falls backwards. Um, and this door does not open as tall as I would like it to. So you can put your figure's hands in there and stuff, but like I said, if you don't try to brace them, like I can brace him on the strut, kinda, or actually I can just have him sitting on that missile. There we go. Yeah, he can just rest his butt on the end of that missile and be able to get in there. But I don't think that is regulation. That is not a regulation place to put your butt, sir. But he's E4. He doesn't really care. So yeah, good old E4 Mafia member him. Let's go ahead and close that panel. There's some really great engine textures in here. We've got some cool little spiral bits. We don't really have any vent action going on, but we do have some cool stuff. Oh, 1 second. I've got a cat here. Pardon me. So, let's go ahead and slide our handy dandy Lego pad away. I don't need that anymore. And let's close that panel down. So, texture-wise, more rivets, more smoothness other than the rivets. Like this thing is very nice. It's very sleek. And then we get to this wing, and this wing is thicker than you think it would be. Like, I thought it would be thinner than it is. And it is pretty thin at the back, but at the front of this winglet, it's very thick. And that's because of lift and how wings are designed. And they actually went with a normal style wing design here. So it's thick and rounded at the top and bottom, smoother at the bottom, and that allows for lift to occur, which means it assists the helicopter whenever it gets up to a higher speed. Now, on the winglet itself, we have this Sidewinder missile that's plugged into a little area. And 1 second again. Good grief. That's the negative to living in Florida, and it's something that's really starting to upset me because it keeps getting hotter and hotter down here. Is we had a cold snap after that last hurricane, so my cat grew in his winter coat, and then it got hot again. So now my cat has once again shed the winter coat and is growing a summer coat. It's just so annoying because I thought I was done with the sheer amount of cat hair, but now I got a lot of cat hair again. Thank you, Florida. So let's get back to this. Okay, on the end of the wing is where we start seeing some fun things. We have a herringbone connector that allows for this really neat piece that we talked about at assembly time, which is this thin rod that has a herringbone connection on each side, but they're different sizes. So you can't just flip it around and plug in one to the other. It doesn't work. I do wish that it had been more versatile, but it seems they don't want you going absolutely crazy with it. So we'll set that there, right there. There we are. And Sidewinder missile gets plugged in with its herringbone connections. Now, I do have another missile here. Where did it go? Where did it go? Here it is. Here's the missile from the night attack vehicle, the Cobra Stinger. And we can possibly plug this missile in. And no, we can't. That's a shame because I couldn't plug in the other missile from Cobra either. None of them. I was a little upset by that. Though these missiles are versatile, at least the Sidewinders are versatile for the missile pods. Kream, I am doing a video and you're just dropping more cat hair around me. It's going to cause me to cough again. Something else I noticed about the missiles, the ones that come with the Stinger are very rubberized feeling. They're solid. Kream wants to investigate the missile. Do you want to lick it? You just want to rub your face on it? Okay. It's solid feeling. The Sidewinder missile and the tow missiles are hollow. They feel like they're sturdy plastic, but they are kind of hollow. And this Sidewinder missile is pretty tall. Where is my clutch? There it is. All right. And we got clutch here. And Kream, go over here. Come to the missile. There you go. Okay. So we've got clutch here. Apparently, Kream thinks the missiles are fun. And he's coming back to investigate the missiles. And the missile, the Sidewinder from into to tip is just a little taller than Clutch. I think that's wild. These Sidewinder missiles are longer than 6 feet, and I think it's the Sidewinder. I could be mistaken, and I think these are the tow missiles, which connect in onto the underside of the wing. And we'll get in more on the missiles after I'm done discussing the helicopter. So let's speed up the helicopter and talk about the rest of the cool stuff. So we've got where's my venti action going on? Oh yeah, it's back there. So the top of the wing has some great rivets on it, and the side of this vehicle is really nice feeling. It gets fatter up here at the engines, and the engine has this really nice vent inside of it for air intake. And then on the other side of it, we've got these bigger vents. Now, missed opportunity making it not blast effect compatible. I think it'd been cool. But there are some bigger, wider vents. Let's turn it around. Probably whacking Kream in the face. There we go. Now we're talking about the back of the vehicle. Now we've got these fun engines up all the way up here at the top, below where the rotors are. And there's actually 2 layers. There's another air intake bits right above where the exhaust comes out. Yeah, it's really, really well sculpted. Just some really fun textures. And then we come down here to the area behind the seats and behind the wings. And we've got a big vent that comes up each side of the aircraft. And this area has got really not much going on. It's basically a flat area. And mainly, it holds some of the electronics, I guess. But mainly it's just a big wide area for the helicopter. We come down here to where we get the tail connection. You can kind of feel where the tail connected because of how the rivets are. The rivets follow the connection lines all the way down. And I did love that. I love how they hid the connection port for the tail to helicopter with those rivets. Then we come down here and we have something interesting. This is called a no-tor system. The tail does not have a tail rotor. And I think I found that to be quite intriguing. This instead, it has little wings that fold. And then there's wings in the middle that move around. And what these do is allow air to flow through. I almost lost clutch. Allows air to flow through a hollow tail. And that air is, of course, sucked in from these 2 vents that I talked about right above the engine here. So these engines expel stuff. And then right above them, so they don't pull in the engine exhaust, are these 2 vents that have really nice vent textures inside of them. And when these propellers spin, the backwash from the propellers, the force of air that comes down and allows the helicopter to lift, it gets sucked in by these 2 vents. Now these vents pull that air down into the tail, so they go down around and into the tail. And then on these little vents, on these little winglets here on the side, the winglet, by the way, can rotate all sorts of directions, and each one can spin independently of the other. See, I've got one facing vertically right now, and then the other one on the other side is slightly diagonal. I can also rotate it again. There it goes. Boom. See, isn't that neat? And then I can rotate them so that they're completely opposite of one another, or rotate it back around so that they're equals again. And that's pretty neat. That would allow the air to come out of little vents on these winglets, or at least next to these winglets, which they didn't put in. And these would adjust the flow. So if the air is coming off the side and the winglet's facing in the direction, it's slanted forward, so the slant is actually going backwards at 45 degrees, means that air would be pushing back and down and raising the tail up. And if the wings are separated, it means that it could be pushing it at the same direction on one side, but it causes the air on the other side to push down. So that means the helicopter would just be pushing itself sideways and going at an angle. At least that's my impression of what the notor system is like. And that's the little wings down here towards the helicopter itself. We haven't even gotten to the other wings or the part that makes it a Dragonfly, which we're about to talk about. So there's 2 more winglets that don't have any sort of movement to them, right on either side of the bigger winglets, which, by the way, I'm calling them winglets because they're like the wings on the sides of the helicopter, but they don't have any weapons on them, and they're very thin in comparison. So winglet. Anyway, the top of the tail is very rounded, but the bottom of the tail is very flat. And the top of the tail has that Huey rounded feel. And we come over here to the winglets at here, and the winglets at top can fold up to make it seem like it has a tail rotor. And they can also fold down on either side to be like the end of a plane, like the little wings on the back end of a plane. I do like how versatile these are, and that they can move around, and they would help out with the flighting of this. Now let's rotate it around and whack Kream a bit more. Kream, I'm trying to explain something to people, and you are directly in front of the camera again. But people don't want to see that. People don't want to see that at all. Do I have to get the Sidewinder missile out? Where's the Sidewinder missile? Where's the Sidewinder missile? Here's a missile. No, that's not the Sidewinder. You like the Sidewinder. I put it back. Okay, here's the Sidewinder. Look, it's the Sidewinder missile. Don't you like it? Don't you like it? Yeah? Look, it's the Sidewinder missile. Yeah, you love the Sidewinder. Okay. No. You know what? Just keep it over there with you. Okay? You can just keep the Sidewinder over here with you. Do you want to do that? No? All right. Anyway, let's get back to talking about the tail. So at the very end of the tail, how the tail rotor system works is you are probably thinking to yourself, when you rotate this tail around, when you get it out of the box, the tail has, he just wants me to scratch him on the face. Is that it? You just want some scratches? Yeah, you just want a little love? All right. I'm spending too much time with the action fig here. There's these vents on the very end of it, 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 5, that feel like they're waffling, but they're not. That's actually the tail vent for the pilot to utilize. And what this vent does is it rotates 360 degrees, which means it rotates sideways, and the plane goes the opposite direction because that's where the vents are, directly into Kream's stomach. Or it can no, Kream. God. Don't try to break my helicopter, you fat cat. You rotate it around to the top, and then he releases the vents, the tail goes down. Rotate it around to the bottom, release the air from the vents, and the tail goes up. And then it's similar on the other side, the tail goes the other way. It was a revolutionary way to do tail rotors. Now, the question arose, why don't they use tail rotors like that anymore? And the answer is that they aren't as precise. And they still use them with the Cobra Z. It's still manufactured to this day, that I understand. But for things like Apaches and rescue helicopters, they needed more precision, so they have tail rotors, because the tail rotors can give that extra bit of precision. And when it comes to a rescue helicopter where you have to stay suspended in the exact place, or a cargo helicopter like a flying crane has to be suspended exactly, and those need a more precise system than the notor system. I just wanted to let you know about that in case you were asking the question, why doesn't that have a tail rotor? That's why. It was a revolutionary design, and it did save them some money because they didn't need to find out how to get a transmission all the way down there to that tail rotor and separate some sort of weird transmission line to have 2 engines going. They didn't need to worry about that, and that's neat. So continuing on, now that we've talked about the exterior, let's talk about the interior here. Let's spin it around and open it up, and we've got 2 seats that are filled. We've got Glenda in the front seat because she's the gunner, and Wild Bill in the back seat because he is not the gunner. And we can go ahead and, for the sake of this episode, let's pull out Wild Bill and get him removed.